Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. Our longest running content series, the Kitchen Table series, returns for its 60th installment. In today's video, we're going to take a nice fun look at an Izzet Auras deck. What's up, MTG BC? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Here we are again with another deck for the Kitchen Table series. We have now hit our 60th episode in our longest running content series, and boy, do we have a fun one to talk about today. Izzet Auras? Yes, they are. So, as is generally customary with the Kitchen Table series, let's begin with the installation of the land base. We're going to start, we got blue, we got red, so we're going to have a little bit of symmetry. Actually, no, we're going to have complete symmetry because this is MTG Burgeoning. We're going to start off with 4 basic islands. We're going to top that with 4 basic mountains. So that 8 of the lands are going to be basics, and the rest are all going to be non-basics that can give us one of either of the 2 colors, which is so important for the potential first turn. More on that to come. 1 full playset of Shivan Reef. It is the Izzet Pain land. It's going to come down. We can tap it for a colorless mana, or we can tap it for a blue or a red, and it just deals 1 damage to us. Needing that colored mana on turn 1 is very important. 4 copies of Shivan Reef. Our next play set of dual lands is going to come in the form of the Izzet Horizon land, and that's going to be Fiery Islets. We're going to tap it. We're going to pay 1 life to add a blue or a red to our mana pool, or we can pay 1, tap it, pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, and then draw a card. We're most likely not going to be sacrificing the land outside of needing something to top deck to win the game. So 4 copies of Fiery Islet. And the last play set of lands that we're going to talk about, well, it's going to be our Izzet Shockland. It's Steam Vents. It's going to come into play tapped unless we pay 2 life, and we most likely will pay that 2 life. Because when we do, we can have it come into play on tap, like I said, and it's going to give us a blue or a red mana. 4 copies of Steam Vents. So those are our lands. That is the land base. There are no mana rocks to speak of. We're not even going to include a Soul Ring. Madness, yes, but you will see why shortly. All right, so Izzet Auras. You're probably thinking, so which auras are we going to need to cast? I'm going to tell you, none of them. We are not looking to cast 1 aura in this entire deck. We are going to look to cheat the auras into play, most likely from our graveyard. So what we need to do on turn 1 is to make sure we can get some of these auras into the graveyard. And the following 8 cards, 2 full play sets of each spell, will allow us to do that in spades. The first being Careful Study. 1 blue mana at sorcery speed, we draw 2 cards, and then we discard 2 cards from our hand. 4 copies as a way in which to get those auras into our graveyard. The next play set, Faithless Looting. Sorcery speed for this time 1 red mana, lets us draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. This has the benefit of flashback, of course, and if it's in our graveyard, we can pay 2 in a red mana, and we can cast this spell from our graveyard, and then we exile it. 4 copies of Faithless Looting. So between Careful Study and Faithless Looting, we want to get at least 1 of those in our opening hand, and hopefully 1 of our dual lands, so that we can cast it on turn 1 and get those auras into the graveyard. Auras, you say, that we're not looking to cast? Well, let's talk about those right now. We have 4 play sets of some of the most powerful auras we can include, not necessarily in these colors. Let's begin with Prodigious Growth. Yes, it is a green aura, but like I said, we are not looking to cast these auras. We are looking to cheat them into play. This is an enchant creature, and it gives enchanted creature +7/+7 and trample 4 copies of Prodigious Growth. Staying right on line with the green auras, we are going to play with a full play set of Mythic Proportions. Again, the casting cost is meaningless to us because we're cheating them onto our creatures. Enchanted creature gets +8/+8 and has trample. 4 copies of Mythic Proportions. Next up is a play set of auras that we could cast, but let's be honest, we're never going to do that because to invest 8 mana into an aura, well, that's just downright nutty in an Izzet deck. So let's talk about our Eldrazi Conscription. It is an Eldrazi aura. It is a tribal enchantment. Again, we are not casting this spell. Enchanted creature gets +10/+10 and has trample and Annihilator 2. And if you forgot or just decided to stop remembering what the Annihilator mechanic is, well, that means whenever enchanted creature attacks, its defending player is going to sacrifice 2 permanents. 4 copies of Eldrazi Conscription. And the last playset of auras we're going to talk about are definitely castable within the confines of this deck, but it's okay if they go to the graveyard too. And that's going to be a full playset of Estrid's Invocation. For 2 and a blue, we have an enchantment. And when it enters the battlefield, it may do so as a copy of any enchantment we control, which, let's be honest, is most likely going to be one of the previous 12 auras we've already showcased. In addition to becoming a copy of that enchantment, it also gains, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile this enchantment. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this could come down into play and become a copy of Prodigious Growth, and then sometime later in the game, we may choose to exile it and have it come back into play, perhaps as a copy of Eldrazi Conscription. 4 copies of Estrid's Invocation. All right, so you're seeing what we're doing here from a linear standpoint. We want to draw our opening hand. We want at least 1 dual land in that opening hand. We want at least one of these draw 2, discard 2 rummage spell. And I was really, looting spell. I don't know what you would, probably looting, to get any combination of these auras into the graveyard. That's what we want to accomplish on turn 1 every single time. So, with these auras in the graveyard, what do we want to do with them? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Let's start unrolling the creatures that are going to make up exactly how we get these auras into play. The first play set does not necessarily have any synergies with the auras in the graveyard, but they sure are a fantastic target to enchant with these auras, and that is a full playset of Champion of the Flame. It is a, come on camera, get in, there we go. It is a 1/1 human warrior for 1 and a red mana. It has trample, and it gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. We are not including any equipment in this deck. This is all auras all the time. So just imagine if we're able to slap on 2 auras from our graveyard onto Champion of the Flame, we have the potential of one-shotting an opponent outside of any potential interaction. 4 copies of Champion of the Flame. All right, so we've got those auras in the graveyard, and we need ways to get them out. Well, here is the best way we have in the entire deck. A full playset of Storm Herald. It is a 3/2 human shaman with haste for 2 and a red mana. When Storm Herald ETBs, we return any number of aura cards from our graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures we control. We exile those auras at the beginning of our next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield, we exile them instead of putting them anywhere else. So the perfect on-curve turn would be turn 1, Faithless Looting or Careful Study. Turn 2, Champion of the Flame. Turn 3, Storm Herald. Knock out an opponent on that turn. 4 copies of Storm Herald. But we're not done yet, because we do understand that any of the auras we return from the graveyard to the battlefield will be exiled at the beginning of the next end step because of Storm Herald's ability. So perhaps it would be prudent of us to include some additional creatures to help cheat those auras into play. The next playset will do exactly that. Another 3-drop, we have Academy Researchers. It is a 2/2 wizard for 1 and 2 blue mana, and when it ETBs, we may choose an enchant creature card. So for the purposes of this deck, we choose an aura, and we put that enchantment into play on Academy Researchers. We don't have to worry about the trample, because the auras that come from the graveyard onto Academy Researchers all have trample. Prodigious Growth, Mythic Proportions, and Eldrazi Conscription all give Academy Researchers trample, so we don't have to worry about just it getting blocked for days by chump blockers. 4 copies of Academy Researchers. All right, and we're left with our very last playset of cards. This is included just in case we have an aura or 2 stuck in our hand with no way to get it into the graveyard. It is our 4-drop, and it is Iridescent Drake, a 2/4 flyer for 3 and 1 blue mana. When Iridescent Drake ETBs, we return target aura card from our graveyard into play, enchanting Iridescent Drake. Again, with the flying, that just adds an additional layer of spice to a huge trample-y creature. 4 copies of Iridescent Drake. And there you have it, MTG BC. This is the Kitchen Table Series. This is Deck Tech number 60, and this was Izzet Auras. Let me know your thoughts about this build in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.